What is going on, Tennessee Volunteer fans and SEC fans and even a couple of Alabama fans that watch this show? I appreciate y'all watching me. Oh, Bobby C's broke down in Raleigh, North Carolina, but we've got a special guest on the show, the ghost of Couch Coach. Uncle Lou put him out of his misery a few weeks ago, but he's back and he's going to help me do some videos to help make all you viewers rich. We're going to do some betting videos, some lines, over and unders, and he seems to have a good mind for that. So I'm glad you're on the show to help me look pretty smart there, Couch Coach.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Catfish. Appreciate you reviving me from the dead. And Lou will be visited by 3 football ghosts later this week. The ghost football present, past, and future. So anyway, but yeah, I absolutely appreciate you having me on, and let's get it going, I guess.
Well, we're doing this one a little bit different. Since you're a ghost, you're not able to be seen, so we just had you call into the show. But you know, with this Supreme Court ruling, I don't know what you think about it, but I think it's going to open up a can of worms, and it might be bigger than fantasy football. This betting that's left up to the states. I think I heard there's like 7 states and even a few more that's got it on the ballot. What do you think the impact is on this Supreme Court ruling?
I don't think it's going to really affect what bettors do, other than the fact that they're just going to bring more stuff on shore. You know, like I really didn't understand why we had all that to begin with back when Bush did it. But, you know, it's just a valid point. I mean, if you have all these fantasy football leagues now that are making so much money, yeah, you might as well go ahead and have the regular stuff too. And so it's just definitely all that stuff just more in the mainstream now, of course. I mean, it didn't used to be that you could talk about point spreads, things like that, bookies, and now they're bringing it up on ESPN. So, hey, you know, might as well, I mean, why not capitalize on it and just work with it?
Before we get into the betting side, I want to know what Couch Coach is excited about this upcoming season. Media Days is happening right now in your hometown, Atlanta, GA. That just means football's right around the corner. Is there a player, a game? Just what are you excited about seeing this upcoming season?
You know, it's going to be an interesting year, I think. I mean, you know, obviously the SEC is shaping up to kind of be top heavy again, with, you know, Alabama being the front runner, Georgia being the front runner, I guess, in the East. But, you know, I'm looking forward to see some of these dark horse teams, which of these dark horse teams are going to kind of show up. I mean, I guess you could say Auburn was a dark horse team last year, but I don't think anyone expected them to kind of take over the West for sure. And so I'm trying to see what kind of team like that is out there this year. In relation to Georgia, I'm going to be interesting to see kind of what the chemistry of the team is going to look like. I mean, clearly we have a very talented group, a lot of young guys going to be playing in some key positions. So particularly the offensive identity, how that's going to look and how that's going to shape up, and just a lot of question marks there. But, I mean, obviously it's excited for college football season. To tell you the truth, I've been buffing it the last couple months. I hadn't even really had time to think about it, which in some ways is good. But it's coming down the pipeline very fast, and, you know, we're excited to get it going.
Well, you're going to be glad to hear. I've got a video I'm working on where I'm going to do a way too early preseason prediction for the college football playoffs. And I'm not going to reveal my picks here on this show, but let's just say Couch Coach will be very thrilled with my pick. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to get right into what we making this video for, the over and under for total wins. And I'm going to break a number one cardinal rule I've always had, and that's never, ever bet on your own team. And
fair enough.
Get your heart involved. And I think another rule I follow is I think there's way too much emphasis put on trends over the last 25 years, because the trends over covering the spread 15 years ago ain't got diddly squat to do with what's happening this year. So let's get right into it. We're just going to focus on just the East on this video, and then I'm going to have you on as a guest here in the next few days, and we'll concentrate on the West. But before we do that, I'm going to give the Vegas odds for the entire conference. And I know you've seen this list for over and under for total wins in the regular season. We've got Alabama at 11, Arkansas at 6, Auburn at 9, Florida at 7.5, Georgia 10.5, Kentucky 5.5, LSU 7, Ole Miss 6, Mississippi State 8.5, Mizzou 7.5, South Carolina 7, Tennessee 5.5, Texas A&M 7, and Vandy and 4. Is there anything is there just one over and under number that you just think is way off, or that jumps off the page with you on that list?
You said South Carolina at 7, right?
Yes.
I'm surprised at the 7. I think a lot of people would have predicted South Carolina to be in that 8 range, maybe even 9 range, based on kind of how they've been talking in the off season, with South Carolina being a possible number 2 in the East for sure, but maybe even a dark horse team to win the East. But really everything. I mean, Florida 8.5 or 8 or 7.5, I guess. That's kind of surprising, I guess, but I think there's a lot of people who think that Florida could, double their win totals. I think there's a perception of Florida that they have talent. It just vastly underachieved last year, that there's some organizational stuff there that kept them back. And I'll give my thoughts on, and you'll give your thoughts on Florida as well. But I just, I'm surprised a little bit by that one, but everyone else seems to be about right. Georgia might be a little high on the 10.5. I kind of thought they would be at about 10. So that's interesting, but otherwise everything else seems about right.
I can't believe that you didn't say the one thing that just jumps off the page at you is Tennessee at 5.5. Are you kidding me? 5.5? We're going to a damn bowl. I've said it I don't know how many times. It might be the Little Debbie oatmeal cream pie bowl, but we're going to a damn bowl. I can't believe you don't have any more faith in my balls than 5.5.
Well, Now, you were the one who said that, you can't be objective with your team, right? So here's the deal. When we talk about these East teams, I'll let you talk about what you think about Georgia, and I'll talk about Tennessee. And because, again, your heart's in Tennessee, my heart's in Georgia, even though they like to take my heart out of my chest and stomp it on the ground every freaking year. But, yeah, I can look at your Vols, and even though we're a rival team, I can be like, hey, man, that schedule's brutal. And if Jeremy Pruitt gets 7-8 wins, you should give that guy SEC Coach of the Year. I'll tell you that, because that's a tough slate of games you guys have this year.
Well, if that's the case, you better be engraving Jeremy Pruitt on that trophy right now. And I'm going to abandon my cardinal rule of not betting on your own team. I'm going to throw a few bucks on that 5.5 because we're going to a bowl. But let's get right into it. You've been reading Steel stuff. Kind of tell everybody what you think on the East. We'll go over Steele's publication for his rankings and number of wins before we break ours down. Kind of tell everybody on the Volunteer Roadshow what Steele has to say in his SEC East rankings.
Sure. So he has the East, and again, most of your viewers are going to know who Phil Steele is. I mean, he puts together a very elaborate publication. I mean, obviously, it's a ton of information, tons of stats. I mean, especially in regards to betting, lines, trends, returning starters, turnovers. It's really in years past, he's been very good about predicting dark horse teams, which is always interesting if you're even a casual college football fan, but especially if you're a bettor, you're looking for those dark horse teams that are going to get to those good bowls or maybe even break into the top 4. And so in regards to the SEC East, here's what he has. I mean, obviously he has Georgia at number 1. And then he has Florida at number 2, which shouldn't be too surprising to some people, because I think a lot of people have
Florida number 2.
Well, I agree with you, but I think there's a perception out there that Florida is a team with a lot of talent. They're in a talented state, and that it was more of an organizational problem last year instead of a talent problem. I don't share that opinion, but he has Florida at number 2. He has South Carolina at number 3, which is interesting. He has Missouri at 4. He has Kentucky at 5. He has the Tennessee Vols at 6, and he has Vanderbilt at 7.
This guy, this publication, I used to like him. but it's now been officially considered a mullet wrapper for me. Tennessee at 6. Are you kidding?
Well, I mean, hey, man, I mean, that schedule, I'm just telling you, I mean, that's what he's looking at. You know, he's with a brand new coach, you know.
Let's start with the top of his list in Georgia. I'm going to give you my total number of wins. I've gone into the schedule, and we're going to do another one of these follow-up videos, maybe a week before the season if you'll come back on. But this is kind of a lot of gut feeling goes into my prediction, just because we don't really know. A lot could happen in practice, injuries. We're going off last year's perception of last year's team and what you have to replace. So it's so hard to make these predictions. But Phil Steele has been right a lot, and I respect him, but he's gone off the deep end with this Tennessee at 6. I tell you that. But we got Austin Peay, South Carolina, Middle Tennessee, at Missouri, Tennessee, Vandy, at Death Valley, LSU, Florida, at Kentucky, Auburn, UMass, and Georgia Tech. That's your schedule. Now, I've been thinking about this Georgia team. This Georgia team, I think, has a lot more upside than, say, an Alabama for one reason. I had Alabama and Georgia kind of tied when I've been thinking about who am I going to pick here. And what really sold it for Georgia for me is Jake Fromm, a returning quarterback. That's going to matter when it comes down to these games in the SEC conference play. I really think people are getting way too excited over this second half of the national championship game, and I think Alabama is going to experience some growing pains. But if there's anybody that can overcome that, that's Nick Saban. So I'm really picking Georgia to win the SEC just for two reasons. Jake Fromm, and then I want to be different than everybody else, to make me look like a genius in case it happens. So, but anyway, I really think that Jake Fromm, and with Chaney coaching up the tight ends, I think that's really going to help Georgia use the tight ends where they haven't been the last year or so. So I want to give the nod. So I just gave away one of my picks to the college football playoffs as Georgia, but I have y'all at 10-2. I think there's two possible losses here that I'm not saying the probability is very high, but they're going to be games that I think could pose a problem if you're not playing your A game. I'm actually going to put 3 on there. That's Missouri at Death Valley. Say what you want about Ed Orgeron and LSU, but it's at Death Valley, which is over the years have been one of the toughest places to play, and just pray that it's not a night game there. And Auburn. Those are 3 games. So you're looking at 10-2, 9-3. I mean, you might go 11 games, but I'm going to pick 10-2 right now, and that may change when we redo this video right before the season. What do you think? That's just me. I think 10-2, 9-3 is where I'm going to have you.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's good information. I mean, it's funny because, as much trash as in my former life that I talked to Alabama fans and everything, the reality is, look, it's Alabama till it's not Alabama as far as I'm concerned. And if we play them, which right now they're not on our schedule, if we play them, which there's a high probability that we will, if we trot that same game plan that we trotted out in the national title game, they'll beat us again. What it comes down to is Kirby's got to fix that secondary. That's been a chronic problem with him at Georgia, and it's been a problem with him at Alabama there towards the end. There's just the teams that have given us problems historically are teams with quarterbacks. Now, that could be completely different this year. We are getting talent. It should be an improved secondary. But until I actually see that happen, it's one thing to get the talent. It's another thing to have the scheme. So, if I'm looking at teams that are going to give us problems, it's obviously teams that can sling it on us. So I'm looking at South Carolina, I'm looking at Missouri, and I'm looking at Auburn. Now, Georgia does get Auburn at home, and Auburn's a terrible road team under Gus. So I think that favors Georgia. I think playing on the road at South Carolina and Missouri, that favors them on the road, especially early in the year. Now, I agree with the LSU one. I mean, especially that's a kind of weird place to play. But, man, LSU, if they try to run in a box against Georgia, they're going to lose that game, just like they do against Alabama. I mean, they have to have a quarterback presence there because you're not going to play ground and pound with Georgia and win that game. So if I'm going to predict, if you're going to go 10-2, I would predict, losses to some of those teams. Missouri's, kind of an interesting team because their defense is kind of, not really there. South Carolina, I just don't like the coaching there. I mean, if Spurrier was the coach, I would feel differently about that. But I think it'll be a very tough out. I think it'll be like a Georgia Notre Dame kind of game, like it was last year, very close, maybe even a little low scoring. But I mean, any of those teams can knock us off, and honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. 10-2, 11-1 seems about right. If we don't win the East, that is absolute underachievement. Just poor coaching. So I expect to win the East, and that should be the expectation in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I forgot to mention South Carolina. Those are your 4 tough games, and if you split that, that's going to put you at 10-2. But there's a chance you might lose 3 of those. Who knows? I mean,
if we lose 3 games, Kirby's got to fire somebody. 3 games is unacceptable with the talent we have. But 10-2, 11-1, that's fine. But anything outside of a bunch of rash injuries. 9-3 with that schedule. I mean, this schedule is not hard enough to go 9-3. So, if we go 9-3, Kirby's got to fire somebody. That's how I feel.
Well, Florida is who still has it number 2, and I'm going to read their schedule off real quick, and I'm going to try to pick up the pace. This doesn't take very long, but Charleston, Kentucky, Colorado State, at Tennessee, at Mississippi State, LSU, Vandy, Georgia, Missouri, South Carolina, Idaho, FSU. That's why I think that Steele is off his rocker to put Florida at number 2. I'll just name off. Tennessee's not going to be an easy win for them. Mississippi State, it's out on the road at Mississippi State with Nick Fitzgerald. You got LSU, you got Georgia, you got Missouri, you got South Carolina. To put them at number 2, I think they're going to be a lot like Tennessee. I think we had similar seasons last year. We're both got first-year coaches. I've got them at 7-5. I really do. I think that would be a good season for them. What do you think about Florida?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think I feel 7-5 with them as well. I mean, they could go 8-4, 9-3, but I mean, the schedule's not horrible. I mean, it's not like they get Alabama or Auburn from the West, but I just got to see what they're rocking with on offense. I mean, it's the way I feel about Tennessee. I mean, that offense is a question mark. So, to me, I mean, for them to be predicting 9-10 wins out of this group is a lot. I mean, year one is year one. So Mullen, it's going to take him a couple years there. But, yeah, I mean, I think 8-5 would be a good season. 9-4 would be a good season for Florida this coming year.
Well, let's just go over it. Let's go over my team. Tennessee. We've got West Virginia, ETSU, UTEP, Florida, at Georgia, at Auburn, Alabama at home, at South Carolina, Charlotte, Kentucky, Missouri, and Vandy. I know that's not an easy schedule, but we're going to a damn bowl. Change my mind.
Change your mind? Okay, so you want my predictions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So, first off, I think the West Virginia game and the Florida game, the first, those 2 games, the first 4 games of the year are going to be crucial for you guys. You have to play well in those games. If you get run off the map against West Virginia, that's going to be a problem. If Florida comes back and beats you in your place, that's going to be a rough season for you guys. But here's the deal. Let's say, West Virginia, you play that game tough. Maybe they pull it out by a field goal, right? You win the next 2 cupcakes, and then you play Florida at home. And let's say you pull off a win over Florida. Let's say it's a low-scoring 13-10 kind of game. Awful game to watch, but you win it. So you're at 3-1. You go to Georgia. If Georgia's kind of struggling out of the gate, maybe they have a loss to South Carolina or something. That could be a tough out there for Georgia. But I still think Georgia, from a talent-wise, gets that one. So you're looking at 3-2. You go into a bye week for Auburn. Auburn, they're up and down, man. I mean, I just don't know what they're operating with, but and their place, that's tough to maneuver. So I think Auburn wins that one. I don't know if they blow you guys out, but I think they win that one. So that's 3-3. Alabama, I mean, you're not winning that one at 3-4. Now, South Carolina, that's an interesting one there. Now, they do get a bye week before you guys. That's the only thing, because that game historically has been interesting. But you know what? I'm going to be nice because I'm on your show. I'm going to say you pull off an upset against South Carolina at South Carolina. So that's 4-4. So I got you guys at 4-4 to start the season. Now, you play Charlotte, which is 5-4, all right? Or it should be 5-4. Now you got Kentucky, Missouri, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's Charlotte. Go ahead.
So, Kentucky at home, that favors you. So I'll say 6-4. Missouri, I just, with Block and that group, I'm going to say 6-5 there. At Vanderbilt, I mean, maybe 7-5. 7-5 is possible, but man, that offense has got to click. I mean, that offense is, and again, it starts off at the beginning of the season. If you guys come out and just get blasted and, that defense is terrible again, it's going to, you could go 2-6 during that early stretch. But Pruitt's got to keep you guys competitive, and injuries are a situation. But, 7-5 is probably pushing it. This team 6-6 is possible. And, South Carolina went 6-6 in year one of Muschamp. So I'll say 6-6 for you guys.
And if you ask me, am I going to be upset at 6-6? No, it'll be a step forward, but I won't be excited and as I would. I really think we're going to go 7-5. I just have a feeling, and like I said, you don't bet on your own team, but we're going to go over that 5.5. I really, really, really believe it. Those are the four main teams we have in the East. I mean, we could go over Missouri's schedule and what you think. I think they're a dark horse. I'm going to pull up Missouri's schedule here real quick and kind of go over that. I should have had that in my notes, but I didn't do it.
Well, South Carolina is an interesting team because everyone has them as the number 2, and it's very interesting that Phil.
We haven't gone over South Carolina. Let's do them real quick. They've got Coastal, Georgia at number the second game of the season, Marshall at Vandy, at Kentucky, Missouri, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida, Chattanooga, and Clemson. That's not a cupcake schedule. I mean, they've got Georgia right off the bat. They haven't been very good against Kentucky. What has it been, 4 games in a row? Kentucky's beat them or something like that?
They've lost 4 games in a row to Kentucky,
they do get Missouri at home. Texas A&M, that's a crapshoot on who's going to show up. You've got a heck of a
they have not beaten Texas A&M since they joined SEC.
You've got a new coach, but it's not just any coach. It's Jimbo Fisher. He's got a ring on his finger. You got Ole Miss should be a win. I think they beat Florida. Chattanooga's going to win, and then they got Clemson. I really have them as an 8-4 tops. I think they're 7-5, 8-4, and I really think there's a logjam at number 2. Tennessee and South Carolina and Florida and Missouri all just bunched up. All it takes is a couple of injuries for Georgia, and the East could be one of the most chaotic seasons we've seen in recent memory.
Well, Georgia, that's a pipe dream there, because if we lose Fromm, we got Fields. You know what I mean? We lose, one of the 2 of our running backs, we got 2 more. You know what I mean? So Georgia does have the depth. They're kind of getting there with like Clemson and Alabama. If they lose 2, they lose 2, right? But the injury deal, I don't think it's going to affect us like it would at South Carolina. South Carolina, let's say they beat Coastal Carolina, they lose to Georgia, but it's a close one. They beat Marshall, they beat Vanderbilt, Kentucky, so they start the season 4-1. Now Missouri is coming off a bye week, and the bye week should be an advantage for you, even if you're playing at someplace. So I'm going to say Missouri wins that one, even though Carolina has beaten them the last couple of years. So that puts them at 4-2. Now, depending on how they feel, how Texas A&M feels, that's going to be an interesting one, because Texas A&M has typically had their number. But if there's every year for South Carolina to beat Texas A&M, this is the year to do it. So I'm going to be optimistic with South Carolina and say that they beat Texas A&M. So that's 5-2. Now, I did say initially that Tennessee could upset them. That's really a 50-50 game either way. But I do think that fact that they're playing at home, they get a bye week before you guys, that does favor Carolina. So I'm going to put them at 6-2 there. Now, this Mississippi game might be a little interesting, because these are kind of games that South Carolina chokes on.
Yeah.
And Mississippi does have a bye week before playing them. So that's 6-2. I'm going to say Carolina pulls that off, but that's going to be a close one. So that's 6-2, 7-2 at Florida. I mean, honestly, man, I could see them, let's see, that's 2-7-2. I could see them winning that one. So I don't know. That's a toss-up there. I mean, I think Clemson, I don't see them winning that one. So I could see them at about, 9-3, 8-4. I mean, I kind of have a feeling they're either going to lose a game to Florida or Texas A&M or, somewhere in there, maybe to Tennessee. I don't think they're going to beat all three of those teams. So I think they're going to be about 8-4. Yeah.
Missouri schedule, we'll go over them real quick. They start out at UT Martin, Wyoming, at Purdue.
Yeah.
They're on the road against Georgia. They're on the road. No, they're at home with Georgia, and they're on the road at South Carolina. They've got Alabama this year at Alabama, Memphis, which they've been pretty decent in the past, but it's a home game. Kentucky's a home game. Florida is at the Swamp. Vanderbilt's at home. Tennessee is in Knoxville, and Arkansas. That's a rivalry game with them guys, and it's at Missouri. I mean, I think that's a good 7-5 and 8-4 season for Missouri. I mean, at the best. I mean, they could just as easily go 6-6 as they could 8-4. But I just had that as my dark horse. I mean, it's all going to tell on what kind of defense they got. If they can get that defense up just a couple of notches, that's gonna flip some fields right there.
Yeah, that defense was brutal last year. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. And they were awful. They started the season awful last year. But I think this year they tend to get a little bit easier of a slate. They play UT and Wyoming and Purdue. They got whipped by Purdue last year. But they do play Purdue on the road, so that's kind of a toss-up there. And it says Missouri's 9-4 in road openers. So that's an interesting stat to throw out. So you know what? If Missouri goes to Purdue and they win that game, they're going to be 3-0 going against Georgia. And depending on how they play there, that's a team that could play with a lot of confidence, especially if Georgia's kind of still working out some kinks. So that's an interesting game for Georgia there. But I'm just going to say because Georgia has the depth there, they pull that out. But let's say they start 3-1, they get that bye week for South Carolina, they go 4-1. They're not going to beat Alabama. But it wouldn't surprise me if they gave them a tough game if they got some confidence there at 4-1. And so I'd say Alabama wins that one at 4-2. They play Memphis and Kentucky. I have them at 6-2. Florida, that's a toss up there. Tennessee, that's a toss up out there. Vanderbilt's coming off a bye week. I kind of have them at 6-2. So I could say about 8-4, 9-3 is a possibility for Missouri because that stretch down towards the end is not impossible to navigate. So, yeah, I can see Missouri being a 9-3 team, 10-3 team even.
Well, I think that's just going to be the high end. So let's go ahead and give everybody what they're wanting, and that's a chance to become millionaires. We're going to help them win some money here. I'm going to go over the East, over and under, and you just give me over and under and tell people. Or you could also say just stay away from it, and that's about right. Georgia, okay. 10.5, over and under.
I like the over, 11-1.
I like the under, and okay. I've got them at 10-2, and I'm going to keep track of this. Florida, 7.5, over and under.
7.5, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them on the under. I like them at 7.
Yeah, I like them on the under too. South Carolina at 7.
7. I'm going to say a push on that.
I'm going to go with the over, and but yeah. just because I guess I'm higher than everybody. I think they've got a good wide receiver and a good quarterback. It's just what the running back's going to do. Missouri at 7-5. I'm going to go with under. What do you got?
I like the over. I like them at 8 or 9. Yeah.
All right, Kentucky at 5.5.
I'm gonna go with the under on Kentucky.
I'm gonna go with over because I think they're gonna squeak out a bowl, and they're bound to get it together sometime. I think that running back, what's it, Snell? I think he's back. He's a heck of a running back, and I think if they can get a good quarterback, they might go to a bowl and go 6-6. So, but this is just preseason stuff. Tennessee 5.5. I'm going over big time. Majorly, ostentatiously over on that. I'm betting the house. What do you got?
I think you're about to be out of the house, my man. But no, I'll say a push at that. Well, if it's 5.5, I'll say over at 6. But
Okay,
man,
you're a good
that
man.
schedule's hard, Catfish. That schedule's hard.
Jawan Jennings, Marquez Callaway, Ty Chandler. We're going to see what kind of quarterback Garantano is. Butch Jones had a diamond in the rough. We got Jeremy Pruitt, Todd Kelly Jr. Hey, I'm telling you, we're going to a damn bowl. We're going to finish this last one. 4 games for Vandy. I haven't done any research on Vandy. They've beaten us 3 out of the last 5 games. Whatever you say, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean Vandy. I mean, I'll say a push at 4-8.
I say put your money back in your pocket on that one. We'll both push that one.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. Gamble at your own risk. But if you've got an extra $100, call your bookie up and say, I want to put 100 on the over for the Tennessee Volunteers. That's going to wrap up the show. I've got a birthday wish, and anybody that has a birthday coming up, email me at volunteerroadshow@gmail.com. Everybody knows Garrett Smallvall got his start on this show back last year, made a video for me. He turns 22 years old today, so happy birthday, Garrett. And everybody go sub up Smallvall. He's got him a job writing some articles with Fansided. He's an intern at a sports talk radio station in Birmingham. He's doing a lot of things, and I'm really proud of him. And so everybody in the comments section, wish Smallvall a happy birthday. Let me get it here. Announced the winner. I've been, I don't know if you know this, Couch Coach, but I've been doing the best comment from a previous video announcing a winner. And I've got a couple of gift cards for $25. I also got a Bass Pro, but I don't have it with me. And Ryan Shrink, you've been ragging me out all year since this time last year about how come you ain't ever won anything. Well, there's your chance, buddy. He's a Gator fan, but he's been a loyal follower of this show, and I appreciate him watching. I still don't know how living in Knoxville he's a Gator fan. That just blows my mind. But Ryan Shrink, email me at volunteerroadshow@gmail, and I'll be sure to mail that out to you. And another thing I've got that I've been touting here lately is my Friday night call-in show. I'm going to start not this Friday, but next Friday. And I'm going to do a couple of them before the season starts. And I think I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock. It's going to be an hour or so. It depends on how many people call in. And we're just going to have a good time and hopefully have a good show by the time the season starts. And I've got an interview with Tennessee River Monsters Captain Shane Manning that fishes on the Tennessee River in Watts Bar. He's got a fantastic guide service, and he's been sponsoring my show, and he's going to give away a fishing trip to go fishing with me the weekend of the Florida game, and we're going to do a fundraiser for those with special needs and wounded warriors. And we're going to interview him tomorrow or the next day, and he's going to talk about his guide service, talk some Tennessee football. He's a huge Tennessee fan. He's the one that got me on the Brent Venables bandwagon, but he's going to be on the show tomorrow. So I want to say thank you to everybody. I've already hit 950 subscribers. Help me get to 1,000 before the season starts, and check out my Facebook page at Volunteer Roadshow. Just type that in the search box. And I've also got a chat group called Volunteer Roadshow's Fan Talk. Join that up and follow me on Twitter. I haven't been doing too much on Twitter, but I want to start getting that crank back up. And my Twitter handle, is that what it is? Twitter handle? My Twitter name, whatever, is at Vols Roadshow. So I appreciate everybody. Follow me, man. Y'all been great. I want to say thank you to Couch Coach, or actually the ghost of Couch Coach, for coming on the show. And we've got a lot more stuff going on. So thanks for tuning in. Go Vols. We're going to a damn bowl. I promise you that.